thing to be really careful about when you're using a mirror modifier. If I hit Tab to go into edit mode, as you'll see over here, as you can with any modifier you have applied, you can hit the I to turn off the visibility of that effect of that modifier. And as you can see in here, there are mostly no faces on this wall here. This is pretty empty, and that's how you want it with when a mirror modifier is working. You don't want faces inside of here merging with stuff going on over here. And what happened when we created this inset for our little trim bit is this created a little face here and a little face here, and we don't want that because it's going to mess up stuff down the road. So if we click on it, hit delete, select faces, and then we're going to also delete that one as well. So that makes sure our geometry is good and clean for down the road. So I'll turn the effect of the mirror modifier back on. If we're making a Monopoly house, I suppose it would be okay that the roofs come up and meet perfectly with the walls here like this. But because this isn't Nintendo 64, what we probably want to do is go into the front view. Let's add a loop cut, Control R, and click and drag it up to just about right there, and hit Control R to make another loop cut and drag it to just about right there. And what we're going to do is actually scale all of this bottom bit and kind of tuck it up under here so it looks like our roof has a bit of an overhang. So let's go into Z, hit Z to go into wireframe mode so we can select everything, change the selection mode to vertex, and I'm going to hit B to do a box select and select all of this right here. And I don't want to select this first loop cut we just made because that's going to be the extension of our trim. I'll hit Z to go back into solid mode so I can see a little bit better. Hit S to scale this and hold middle mouse to constrain it to the x-axis and just bring it over just a little bit. Then I'm going to go to hit 3 to go into right view, and I'm going to press S to scale, hold middle mouse to constrain, and bring it over a little bit. So now if we rotate around, we have this indent, which is what we want. So if I go back into front view, hit G to grab, hold middle mouse to constrain it to Z, I want to bring to where this top orange dot is right in the same position of that first black one there, which means that this should be sitting up under this. And looks like we're going to have to adjust this just a little bit. So I'm going to hop into face selection mode, select this face. So if we hit C, brings up our paintbrush selection. I want to select all of these faces right here. So I'll click and drag it right over. If I accidentally selected some stuff I didn't mean to, I can hold down the middle mouse button and that will deselect all that stuff. And when I'm done making my selection, I right mouse click and that confirms it. I want to make sure I didn't select this face right here. Actually, I do want to select that. So I'll hit Shift and select that down there. Now I'm going to hit G to grab, middle mouse to constrain, and just bring that a little bit under that edge there so that looks a little more uniform. Looks like I'm going to need to do the same thing about on this one, pull it over a little bit more. So I'm going to double click off into the screen somewhere to deselect, hit C to bring up my paintbrush selection, grab all that bit right there, make sure this bottom one is selected, hit G, and I'm going to hit G to grab, middle mouse to constrain, and bring that over a little bit. That was way too much. Hit G to grab again, middle mouse, and that looks alright. That looks pretty good. So let's Alt select these faces right here so we can loop select all these faces and do a quick inset on them like we did with the trim. So I'm going to hit T to bring up my tools because I'm definitely probably going to need to edit the inset that occurs. So I'm going to hit W, inset faces, click to immediately confirm it, and actually that looks pretty good. But actually I don't want any thickness on that. 0. because when I have thickness on this inset with this in this particular situation, what it does is draw these faces here apart, and I don't want that. I could easily go back and fix it, but I'd rather just not have to fool with it. So we're going to turn off the visibility of the mirror modifier, and we do not want any faces in between this alternate dimension here, this internal world. And delete that face, grab that one, hit delete, turn my visibility back on, hit tab, go out of object mode, and that's looking pretty straight. So let's go ahead and start adding some windows and some cool stuff to these triangle areas here. So if I hit 1, go into front view, and I hit tab to go into edit mode, make sure I have faces selected, select that face. I'm going to hit W and subdivide. So if we hit subdivide again, it will do that again. So now this has cut up this geometry enough for me to start playing with it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just select this face and press W, inset faces, and I'll just click on that. And this is not what I want it to do. So what we want to do is edit this inset by hitting T to bring up our tool shelf. And this time I actually want the depth to be 0 so that I'm just creating this border of geometry here. Now the cool thing, now that we've set that up, I can then select these two faces, select that face, shift select that one. Then instead of going through W, inset faces, and all that, I can press Shift R, which will repeat the last action of my tool exactly. So it's kind of a time saver. And so what we want to do is grab this face, shift select, shift select, shift select that, hit E to extrude, and pull those faces back. Now we have kind of a cool little window thing, which is pretty sweet. So let's go ahead and do some stuff on the side. Hit 3 to go into right view and select that face there. I'm going to hit W, subdivide, and as I said before, the Shift R will repeat whatever last tool you did. So instead of going W, subdivide, we can just hit Shift R again. And I actually want to subdivide this bit one more than I did the other so we can do a little more interesting of a design. So I'll hit Shift R again. And this time I'm going to, actually let's go ahead and save this. File and save. And so this time I want to select this face here, and I'm going to press W, inset faces, and make myself a little bit of a border. And this time I'm just going to go along here, hit Shift R to repeat that, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift star, Shift car. Okay. So now let's select all the faces inside of these little frames we just made. Bump, 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 bump. And hit E to extrude and pull them back a little bit. And hit Tab to go into object mode. And we've got some cooler looking geometry. And as you can see, that repeats on the mirrored side as well, so that's work saved there. So let's go ahead and not neglect the back of our house. So I'm going to hit 1 is front, 2 is back. So now I'm going to hit Tab and select this face. I want to go ahead and hit W, subdivide. Actually, that's not what I want to do, because before we made an inset which gave us this little border thing of architecture around here. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. And we're going to press W, inset faces, and once again we don't want those top lines there crossing like that because that would be bad. So we'll just bring that to about right there. There we go. Now we can select this face here, hit E to extrude and pull it back a little bit like all its brothers. And W, subdivide, W, subdivide. So I'm going to select this face and then press W, inset faces, get it to how I like. It is how I like, so now I can shift select these. Well, rather, I don't want to shift select, I want to select, shift select that, and if I hit shift R, it'll do the same way I just did that one. So select these two faces, or those four faces rather, hit E to extrude to pull them back, and hit tab, go into object mode. Kind of a little bit more interesting of a design here, I think anyway. Okay, so next what we want to do is make some dormers, and dormers are those little kind of roofed window things that you see on Macaulay Culkin's house in his big rich ass house in Home Alone. So what we want to do is press 1 to go into front view, hit tab to go into edit mode, and I've already got this line set up here, which will be good to help split up the geometry some, but when I extruded this bit of the roof out here earlier while we were making the house, what I should have actually done, well, I grabbed it. What I should have done was extrude it so there would be a line here of geometry, which would have been a lot better. We're going to use the knife tool, and I'm going to hit K, which brings us the knife tool, and I want this to be right about where the house falls off here. And I want to start the cut about right there. Then I'm going to pull it right up here to the top and click that point. And then if I hit space, that should cut this bit of the ceiling here. And occasionally the knife tool will act weird and you may have to try to cut it a few times, but it worked that time, which is good. What I want to do to be consistent is go ahead and make a cut all the way along this line here, going all the way down. So what I'm going to do is hit K again. The knife should snap automatically to this point right here because it'll snap to any vertex point or where there is one. And so we want to, actually what would be better to do is right click to cancel that out and hit 5 to go into top view so we can make sure we're getting it straight. Because there's no way to really constrain the knife tool that I know of. You can constrain it in a way that allows you to make a cut exactly in half of a face by holding control, but for just a straight up like axis constraint, I don't know if you can do that. So I'm going to hit K and select this point here and just go ahead and see if I press control, it snaps to the center of whatever face I'm at, but that doesn't help me out right here. So I'm going to drag that all the way down to the end here. Actually, I'll drag that all the way down to there and try to get this as straight as I can. Click and then hit space, and that confirms my cut, which is good. And it looks like I didn't cut this bit of the trim here, so I want to do that. So I'm going to hit K again and pull this right over here, get that straight, click, then hit space, and that finishes my cut. You can constrain a knife cut, but only to in the center of between the faces, which will work out here. So I'll hit K, I'll hold control, and that pops me to the center here, and keep holding control, and that will allow me to do a straight cut right there, and then hit space to confirm that. And now I actually want to change my selection to edge and select this edge, and I'm going to do something called edge sliding, which if I hit G to grab, I can kind of move this edge down along the line of the roof here, but I'm pretty much eyeballing it, and then that changes the, messes up the roof, and I don't want it to do that. What I want it to do is follow this line perfectly on its own. And the way you do that is with an edge slide. So I'll select Mesh, Edges, Edge Slide, and then it slides right on down there. And I'll bring it to about right there, go into front view. let's see. Let's go ahead and align that line with this one here. So we'll go mesh, edge, edge slide, and bring it up to about there. Then I'm going to press K to bring up my knife tool, hold Control to constrain it, Control right over there, space to confirm it, and let's go ahead and move that line up as well. So edge, edge slide. Oh, looks like I had the other edge selected. I don't want to do that. Control Z. I just want this edge selected. Mesh, edge, edge slide, and align it, I guess, with the top of that little window here. So now we've got the geometry we need to extrude our dormers. So I'm going to go into face mode, select this face, hit E to extrude, and this is extruding in a way that I do not wish for it to. I want it to extrude outwardly and not at this angle. So what I can do is verify down in the bottom left-hand corner here that try to figure out which direction I want by looking over here. And it looks like Y is close towards the direction that I want. So I'm going to hit Y on the keyboard, and that will send this out flat here. And click to confirm that. I don't really need this bottom space here, so what I'm going to do is merge. If I hit space to go into vertex selection, what I want to do is merge these vertices here. Now, if I select this vertex first and hold Shift, then select this one, I can hit M to bring up my merge menu, and if I select at first, it will bring that point to the first point I selected. So that's how I know where it's going to go. We'll do that again over here. We'll select this vertex, then Shift select that one, and then M at first. So that gets me closer to what I want. So if I hit 3 to go into right view, also, I think I want this to be coming out straight against here. So I'm going to edge select, grab that edge, and then hit G to grab, middle mouse to constrain until I've got like a flat line there. Let's go ahead and do face selection, grab that face, press E to extrude, and doesn't have to be anything specific, just a little bit. I'll hit S to scale, middle mouse to constrain it to bring it over to about like that. I'm going to go ahead and make life easy on myself and just grab this whole face here and hit E to extrude it back into this area here. So if we zoom in on in here, and I'm kind of finding it hard to get the exact kind of angle I want. So I'm going to use the fly mode. Sometimes when you're scrolling in and out, the distance that it scrolls is a little too much or not far enough. And one way to overcome that is by using fly mode. So if you press Shift F, this puts you into like flight simulator mode, and you can scroll a little bit, which slowly increases your speed, and you can sometimes much easier get to where you want to see what you want to see. And I want to go ahead and delete this face because it won't be seen and there's no need for it. So hit delete face. So that's the beginning of our dormers there. Let's go ahead and select that face on the front, W, inset face, bring that in just a little bit. Now let's W subdivide and inset each one of these squares. So W, inset faces, find the kind of border we want, and that's good. So I'm going to click on that, Shift R to repeat, Shift R, Shift R. I'm going to grab these faces here, hit E to extrude, pull them back, and that's looking a lot cooler. So let's go ahead and extrude. Let's grab all these outward faces here and extrude this just a little bit, just to give us a little more dimension on our geometry. Select this plane here, face rather, and W, inset faces, and bring that to about like that. And once again, we don't want these two lines here crossing. That'll make things suck. We'll select on that face, hit E to extrude, and bring it inwardly a little bit. Let's bring that in about right there. So getting cooler and cooler all the time. I think it's about time for a quick test render. So let's hit tab, go out of edit mode, and as you can see, my 3D cursor is in the center of the grid, but if it's not, you can just press Shift C, and that brings it to the center. Let's press Shift A, add a plane, hit S to scale, and sometimes when you add a plane and scale it, it may look like this, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? That's because your scale has become inverted. Just try to move it back until you see the plane sticking out there. And I'm just going to do about like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and throw a subdivision surface on this plane to smooth it out a couple times. So I've got just a little bit of a generic surface to consider my house against. I'm going to find a little angle I want, about like that. I'm going to press Alt-Control-0 to throw myself into the camera and zoom to the position I want. I'm going to hit F12, hotkey to render, and that should show up in my UV image editor here. So if I scroll back, I can see my little house there. And I'll hit tilde key to zoom, expand this window. Oh no, it's a floating house. Let's hit tilde key to close that out. I still have this face selected, or this plane rather, so I'm going to hit G to grab and middle mouse to constrain it vertically and bring it up a little bit so we don't have a floating house. Hit F12. Hit tilde key to maximize my UV image editor, and pretty cool. Not super fancy just yet, but we're definitely getting there. So let's go ahead and save this, and next we will finish this thing up with some doors, some more windows, and probably throw a deformer on there to give it some cool cartoony character.